Welcome, man, one and all, to Star Wars Newsnet Live. Kind of an interesting thing just happened, guys, because believe it or not, I was so excited to jump on the stream this evening that I didn't actually hit the go live button when I hit the timer drop. I don't know if you saw that we didn't actually go live till about 23 seconds on the timer. For those that were tuning in right away, you can let me know what exactly did you see? Did you see the full 30 seconds? I don't think it came on until the 22-second mark. So I apologize for you guys not having your full 30 seconds of prep time before you got to see our beautiful faces talking to you about Star Wars. But here we are, nonetheless, ready to talk about the Acolyte. So many behind the scenes like teasers. We have little TV spots that are popping up here and there. This feels like classic, just amazing, good old-fashioned Lucasfilm Star Wars marketing that we are getting for this show. It's obviously not the same hype as a movie, but we're getting a lot of the vibes from these things, and so I am super excited about that. Daisy still hasn't seen a script yet for the movie. We're going to talk about it because I have a few thoughts on that to say, and Acolyte theories. And guys, 44 years of The Empire Strikes Back. What an absolute milestone that is. I mean, we're getting close to the 50-year anniversary of Star Wars that Jay and I talked about last week, and now 44 years of Empire, and these movie dates, these year and whatever, are just going to keep getting, more and more crazy as we go on in time. All that to say, welcome in. We're going to be talking about everything Star Wars. What's up, Izzy T in the chat? Jay, how are we doing this week? Like, are the vibes high? I have to tell you that my aunt just got married and did a little honeymoon in the great state of Hawaii, bouncing around some islands. So I'm sure, that's something that you are accustomed to living in Hawaii, seeing the couples around on their honeymoons. But, other than seeing love in the air, Jay, how are you this week?
I am doing pretty great, actually. Pretty good, productive week for Good Games Dude. I'm happy to talk more about that after the show.
No, who cares about Star Wars? Let's just talk about video games today. I'm just kidding.
I'd love to talk about video games for an hour, but no, we got Empire Strikes Back to talk about, and also the Acolyte. So
absolutely. So I want to make sure. So we have a new face on the stream tonight, and I'll let him introduce himself. But this is my good friend Luke, who's going to be joining us from time to time here on Star Wars Newsnet Live, and he's going to be helping out with the timeline show with me, and also doing some other fun videos. As Brian's going to have to take kind of a leave of absence for a while. He's got a lot of stuff going on, so he's going to be taking a step back. We hope Brian's going to join us back again at some point in the near future or whenever he's able to. But Luke, welcome to the stream, my friend. And for those of you who don't know me that well, I just know I like nicknames for people. And so my nickname for Luke in our friend chat with some of our other Star Wars friends, because his name is Luke and it's just a play. It's so cheesy, it's so dumb, because it's a play off of Skywalker. My friend Casey and I call Luke Master Ground Sitter. So Master Ground Sitter, welcome to the stage, sir.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, it's an absolute honor to be here. I look forward to mainly, got brought on to help out with the timeline show, and I'm super excited about that. And I am super honored that I get to pop on tonight and just talk about the wonderful show Acolyte that's coming up, and
that some people are watching tonight.
Man, I am so jealous.
We aren't those honored guests quite yet, but
not yet, but we'll be there soon.
Upwards and onwards, whatever it is. But those of you who don't know, you don't know who Luke is. But let me tell you, this guy, when it comes to Star Wars canon lore and knowledge, like, I feel like he's second to none. Like, Jade, Luke will pull like quotes out of his like rear ends. Like, we'll be talking and he'll be like, "Oh, this character from the High Republic in the year 282 BBY actually said these words and had his orange lightsaber tucked into his waist, and he actually wore 2 different color boots while he was walking on the streets of Mustafar." Whatever, I don't know, something like that. But let's get into it. We're here to talk Star Wars. Daisy Ridley is on the campaign trail for her new movie, The Lady in the Sea, and of course, she's going to get asked about all things Star Wars because, I mean, The Lady in the Sea. I hope it's a great movie, Daisy. I hope you thrive, and it's a wonderful film. But Star Wars is a juggernaut. It is a monster. It is a beast that cannot be stopped when it comes to reporters asking questions. And I have to admit, I was surprised. not taken aback, but a little surprised. She still hasn't seen a script because we've heard the words. It's like imminent that she's going to receive this script for a couple months now. Maybe
Yeah,
since like, who knows when these interviews have really taken place like before, but I'm gonna
true.
say it's February, March. We've heard imminent. It's any day now. And here we are, almost June. She still hasn't seen a script. Like, are we taking our time with this to make sure this is the best possible script ever? Or, is there something maybe that we should raise our eyebrows out? Jay, I'll throw that one to you real quick.
I think that when it comes to these movies, yeah, I mean, like I'm sure that we all know that there's a track record of Star Wars movies having trouble getting off the ground. I don't think this is a situation like that though, because I mean we are hearing a lot about it, and it's not like they're saying that oh, we're reworking the scripts, or it's
Okay.
not like they're saying like no, we're going back to the drawing board. It's
Okay.
we just haven't seen it yet.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure like it's still being worked on, and I'm sure that it's probably still quote unquote imminent.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's something to be worried about just yet. If it starts getting like, oh, we need to switch a director, producer, writer, then that's cause to be alarmed, but not at this point.
Mm-hmm. Imminent to me is 3 weeks ago, the end of the school year was imminent. I was ready to be on summer break. Like, I love my kiddos, but like the school year ending is imminent. Not, the school year beginning next year is imminent. No, that's a few months down the line. Like, I'm still not even there yet. So, Luke, what does imminent mean in your eyes here?
I mean, imminent has to mean, to put like actual numbers to it is hard, but like imminent has to mean like ASAP to me, as soon as possible. And that feels like we've been in the imminent stage for a little while. So again, I'm not worried about the movie. I mean, they brought her out at Celebration. I think
Right.
this thing's going to be okay, but I would be thinking it's happening any day, any month.
I wonder
At
if
the end of the month, I don't know.
she hasn't seen a script, but I wonder how much of this movie she's aware of. Like, how much of her role is she aware of? She even made some comments about how, it's going to be several years since I've played this character, both here, but also in the timeline. We're going forward several years as well. And obviously it's an entirely new team around her, new directors, new, people writing these scripts. Like, so we have Stephen Knight writing. And so it's going to be a definite, like, different experience for her and a different experience for everyone. But I just am curious. I wonder how involved is she in the process? Is she just twiddling her thumbs, waiting for a script, or is Stephen Knight talking to her about like, hey, we're thinking about this direction, we're thinking about certain things like this? I'm curious to know how in the dark she is, or just how much she's even allowed to tell us about the process at this point.
It feels like she is in the dark because I feel like maybe she'd give us more information if she wasn't. And she's said in the past, these past couple months, about how she's been told like a rundown of the movie, and she's like, "This sounds great." She's given a lot of positive momentum to it. Like she likes, and what I don't know if we can cuss on here, but she said something like "sounds badass" or something. So,
yeah.
So I think she'd be giving us a little more if she had more. I don't think she's super involved in what's being done with the movie right now.
What do you think, Jay?
I mean, it's hard to say because I'm sure there's probably an outline for the entire thing out there, and I'm sure that they've probably like Daisy Ridley probably has had some input, and they've gone back and forth about what to do and certain scenes. At this point in time, though, I mean, I think that it's hard to judge how much these actors and these performers have of an input on these stories, because at the end of the day, it's still Lucasfilm, and it's still having to deal with these execs who make their own decisions apart from what the actors and performers have to say. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, like I'd like for Daisy Ridley to have some input and to for her to not be so in the dark, because it is Daisy Ridley and she's an important part to the character. But at the same time, I mean, like, well, we've seen what has been Disney, Star Wars and Disney's track record. Like that relationship has been like, so.
interesting to say the least. I would say I'm not worried at all about this film. Not worried at
Yeah,
all. It's going to be
me
fine.
neither.
It's going to come out
Absolutely.
exactly when they want it to, and it just weirds me out that Daisy. I thought she would have a larger role when it came to the creation of this movie. I thought she might even be a producer on this film. I don't think that's definitely not the case anymore if she still doesn't
Yeah.
have a script and hasn't been maybe more involved. And so that does surprise me a little bit. Maybe that's because of these other things and projects she's a part of. She wanted to make sure she did her due diligence, and seeing those through, it's impossible really to know. Only she could tell us, and maybe she will open up on that at some point. But I will say this: I cannot wait for that movie, and we have plenty to talk about in the future. But let's move on. We have the Acolyte hype train. We are just a couple weeks away from the Acolyte being out. High Republic content in live action. We're all three book people on here, and so we are all very familiar with the High Republic era. We have been dying to get some more of that. So, Jarek, thank you for waking up to pee. It's great to have you on, and I hope that you maybe have a hard time going back to sleep, so that way you can hang out for a little bit longer. But I don't know if you guys got a chance to watch. There were the behind the scenes, teasers that came out, today with just a few shots. Like we have Carrie-Anne Moss is like a Jedi, and there's the camera with that formidable look that she's giving before she presumably is about to fight, May.
Looks
And then we
good.
have Amandla. I actually found out today in that thing, it's Amandla Stenberg. I didn't know it was, I've been saying Amandla Stenberg this whole time, but it's Amandla Stenberg. And
Okay.
here they are, with the knife. It looks like it's probably that part of that same sequence with Carrie-Anne Moss. And then, of course, you have Leslie Headland here with, Amandla's right there as well. Guys, I cannot wait for this show. It's absolutely going to be bonkers. Every time I see some new action sequences from this, I could not get more excited. And they haven't even shown us any of what we know is going to happen with some of the lightsaber combat that's going to take place in this. And the fact that I think most of the fandom is starting to get really excited about this show, from what I've seen, this could be the big hit. This could be the big hit Star Wars needed coming into the end of this year before we get into the hype train for the movies. So I want to ask you guys a quick question. Just from these behind the scenes little teasers, there are the big three characters that this show is promoting right now, I would say. And that is Master Soul, Amandla Stenberg's, May. There's also like the twin theory going on out there amongst others. We'll talk about that later. But, Amandla Stenberg's, character or characters, and, Carrie-Anne Moss's Master and Dara. Those are like the three that we've seen the most of. Of course, we've had some other like, Yord, Jackie, or Yeki, and then you've had Kelnaka, the Wookiee, on there as well. Which of those three, though, the big three that we've seen throughout? Obviously, we're going to talk about the Light Whip and Vernestra later. I will promise we are going to talk about it. But which of the big three are you most excited to kind of dive into their story, but see them maybe flourish in live action? Jay, which one, if you had to lean to one of those three, which one are you leaning towards?
It'd have to be Master Soul. I love the stoic, wise, and calm Jedi Master. I've always loved that character archetype. Okay. But not just that, but having Lee Jong-jae, someone who is obviously a big star overseas, of Asian ethnicity, having like someone like that to come into Star Wars as someone who's also half Asian, that's a big deal. And to see other people from around the world come in and play in the Star Wars sandbox, that is absolutely something really, really cool to see. And I think that he's a fantastic actor who looks like he's having a lot of fun. Like if you watch again the behind the scenes videos, he looks like he's having a lot of fun in this role in the Star Wars universe.
It's almost like he's trying not to be super giddy when he is excited. So let's see, what is this comment right here? It says Master Soul, like that little spot which came out about 40 hours ago, fighting the Acolyte without choosing to use a saber. That was insanely good. Absolutely embodied inner peace when he fought. I was about to mention that particular spot. It felt really cool to watch. That felt like the High Republic, honestly, to me, because he didn't draw his saber. He didn't take the aggressive approach. he was completely in control. We're talking about him fighting who we presume to be May, and they're just going at it, like martial arts style. But he's completely in control of that fight. And at the end, he like has all of her like daggers or knives and just drops them. And it's like, this is a Jedi master. Like, this is peak Jedi form. We're on the defensive. We're not trying to be the aggressors here, but he's literally like talking to her character as he's circling her, just dodging. It literally felt like just peak Jedi master. So Luke, Master Soul for Jay, which of the three are you kind of most interested in? I know you love Master Soul already too, so we can have a Master Soul love fest here. That is perfectly okay.
I was going to choose that, but I think we got that good screen time for him, good fleshing out. So I'm going to go with Master Indara. She seems really interesting. And Tyler, I know that you didn't see the Acolyte teaser after your Phantom Menace showing. I know there were some choice words you had for Regal. I did get to see.
How wonderful for you! Like, I really appreciate you deciding to come on the show tonight, just so you can rub in my face that you got to see something that I didn't on the big screen. I really appreciate the level of care that you've put into this evening.
So, you're welcome.
But enlighten me, please.
It was about like nothing crazy. It was 2 minutes max of fight choreography that we really see already in the trailers. A good portion of it. So she looks really cool. Master Indara feels like a unintentional, maybe slightly intentional reference to Master Indira Stokes from the High Republic. I don't know, just a little name play. It kind of just perked my High Republic brain when I heard the character name.
Right.
So
it is very similar.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting. I saw someone point out that she has like a prequel look to her. Like, she looks like she's from like 22 BBY. Okay. And it's just interesting how everyone else really is embodying the High Republic look with gold robes, really like beautiful, ornate costumes going on, and hers seems a little
Master
different.
Soul and Kelnaka in particular, I think.
Yeah, for sure. So
their outfits.
I do wonder if that's hinting at something for her character arc, or something that her robes maybe look a little different. So I'm just interested to see more about that character.
Luke, can I ask, in the clip that was shown for the Phantom Menace, were they using lightsabers in the fight choreography, or was it still just hand-to-hand?
I can tell you that Master Indira does draw her lightsaber.
Okay.
And obviously, cool. Well, I guess it's not obvious. May does not have her lightsaber. So, yeah.
And she basically uses her lightsaber to slice the knives. Because I have seen the clip. I did get to see the clip, just not on the big screen. And she uses it to like slice the knives that May's like throwing at her. It's pretty cool. It's like classic, Jedi deflection.
Yeah. The choreography and like the stunts and the flying and floating through the air is just, I can't wait to watch this show. This looks so well done. Well done.
That's only what they've shown us in the little teasers and the spots and the trailers. They're withholding the best parts of the action from us. Like, they don't want us to see that until we see the show. And so that's the best part about this, is these are just the things that get us a little bit excited about it. And I really love that. Jay, I really appreciated your point on, that you didn't talk about the entire cast, but just building on that, like the diversity of this cast and what that means for Star Wars moving forward, because we know that I expect the Rey movie is going to be an extremely diverse cast. And we're moving into an era where we're seeing not only Star Wars, but, film culture in general getting more and more diverse here in the States. And so I love the fact that Star Wars should be a place where diversity thrives and is shown on the screen in many ways, just due to the vastness of the galaxy. So Master Soul, my choice as well. I am super excited to see Master Soul in action. So before I have some theories that I want to show out. I want to talk, but we have to talk about the greatest thing that has ever happened in live action Star Wars first. And that is the 1 second shot of Vernestra Rose light whip that we got like Saturday night.
Absolutely.
I'm laying down on my couch, just looking, and suddenly I'm like, I apologize to all of our Star Wars Newsnet like Twitter followers. I just started going, I think I tweeted about the light whip like 4 times between 11 p.m. and midnight because it might have been, should have been 5. I was so excited just for this 1 second clip. I can't tell you, I probably watched that 1 second clip on loop 100,000 times over the course of the last, week. And I made a YouTube short just talking about the excitement for the light whip, but also there are so many, you have to apologize. I will put this over to you. I have to rant about this. The haters for the light whip, just shut up. Like, I'm serious. Like, what are you talking about? What are you even mad about anymore? Light whips have been in Star Wars for a long time, like through the legends that some people hold so dearly. Like, I love some of Legends too. I don't kneel at the altar of Legends, but there's light whip stuff that we talk about there and in video games, and the High Republic has obviously talked about this, and the legacy of the light whip being so closely tied to the Sith is well fleshed out in the High Republic. I would be shocked if they don't at least mention it in passing here in the show. Like, the light whip haters, I don't like, what are you mad at? Because it's why can't Star Wars have just weird things? The concept of a light whip, guess what? It's not that much crazier than the concept of a lightsaber too, guys. Like, get over yourselves. We're in a fantasy land where people can float around and like move things with their minds. It's just wild. So Jay, tell me what you thought about the greatest moment in live action history, which was the Vernestra Rowe light whip 1 second spot.
It was okay.
All right, so where do I go to mute Jay's mic, kick Jay off the screen? Where can I go to this? We're gonna edit that out, and I'm gonna use AI to like master Jay's voice to change that from "it's okay" to "it's amazing" to something like that, just real quick. So I know it's not like it's just a 1 second thing, but Jay, like, come on, you're a High Republic guy, like I know you are. And you can't tell me you weren't really excited to see the light whip for the first time with like a great High Republic character?
We knew it was coming. We knew it was like eventually gonna come though. So it's like when I saw it, I wasn't surprised.
But I'm not saying I was surprised I was surprised they showed it in a trailer.
No.
I was surprised they showed it in a trailer. But so hold on. Just because you know something is coming, like let's say this, you know that Yoda is probably going to appear in the show because he's Yoda. You're not going to be excited when you see Yoda because you know it's coming. You're just going to be there like, it's Yoda.
Kinda. Well, okay. No. I'll say this. Hang on. Like, okay. I'm excited that we got different lightsabers coming into Star Wars, because I do agree with you that I think that there should be more variety. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm just not like on the same level of excitement. I'm happy for that you're excited, but I don't know. I'm not like on the same level of excitement as some people are. Just like, yeah, light whip. I'm not.
I do apologize. Like, I will be making this my personality until
we
see it happen in live action. Like, I will be making it my entire personality until we see it in the show. Luke, please give me your reaction to seeing the light whip like in the trailer just for a moment.
I know
excited. I texted you. I was like, Red 5, where are you? Like, we need to see it.
Yeah, I responded back, Red 5 standing by, and wow. Yeah, I love the High Republic. I love everything about it. All characters in the High Republic, I love all of them. So seeing Vernestra in the show, first of all, very excited. Second of all, the light whip shows up, and I love that. And I love that it was a 1 second clip. We didn't see where it's going. We didn't see who it's with. It's just like, hey guys, the light whip is in the show. And that's all I need. Mm-hmm. I love that. So
I love quoting my father on this show. And my father was like, he was like, Jay, it was pretty cool. I think most people probably didn't notice it like whenever it happened. It was so fast. And I got mad at him and I attacked him too. So don't worry, Jay, you're not alone.
I'll clarify another thing about like why I'm not that excited.
Okay.
Vernestra Rowe isn't like my favorite character. That's why.
Okay, that's fair.
She's okay.
I'm a big Vern guy.
Yeah. I know a lot of people. A lot of people like in the High Republic love Vern. right?
Mhm.
I'm like, I think she's cool,
Mhm.
you know, but she's not like my favorite out of like all the other like High Republic characters. I think that there are certain like
Mhm.
I definitely have like favorites. Vern is probably like maybe like in the top 10, maybe around that area.
Have you read much of Phase 3 yet?
I haven't actually. I
Okay.
haven't gotten into phase 3
That
yet.
might change your mind
Okay.
because her arcs in Phase 3 and how she goes from like where she thinks she's lost her Padawan to the fall
Oh,
of Stellan to distrusting the Force to refining herself and reclaiming
okay.
where she's at in the Force. It's like a really cool arc for someone who was a prodigy Jedi, knighted at
Sure.
15, who's and I love these stories of these little, you know, like prodigies and everything. So a couple things. One, Manslayer, it's good to see you. I've been enjoying our discourse we've been having back and forth on Twitter. It's always good to see you pop in here. And Jarek, this is actually a hilarious comment. He said, I wonder if they will break out the old episode 1 pre-digital Yoda puppet to make a cameo in the Acolyte.
Please.
Can you imagine if they did that? The world would lose their minds. It would break everyone watching because I still have because you can't find it. You know, they don't play that on TV anymore. It's not on Disney Plus. Like, but I have an old Phantom Menace like DVD copy before they redigitized it, and it has that puppet. So even today, when I think of Phantom Menace Yoda, I think of that first because that's what I saw first. And so how negative do you think would this show be done if they did that puppet? Like, would the show be done if that puppet showed up? Like, just no work on it? Because
There's no way.
I hope they use it. This is a purely like hypothetical that will never happen. But would that
Yeah.
break the show? Will like it be over?
I'd be so taken out of it. Like everything is gonna look great, and then you have puppet crackhead Yoda, in the council, and then they're like, I'm just gonna be like, what's going on? What is this?
Oh my goodness!
Also, I see a question that says, "How old do Mirielons live?" And that is 68 years on average, but 200 when attuned to the Force.
Is that on like Wikipedia or something? Like
Google search. So
Google
yeah.
search. We'll take it. We'll take it. That sounds right.
It is
I mean,
from
most
Wikipedia.
species
Wikipedia.
most species live way longer when they're attuned to the Force, like most individuals, and we've seen that throughout Star Wars for sure. So, couple theories before we talk Empire Strikes Back. So, there's a lot of theories that May's character is like a twin, and there's going to be this like duality thing where there's like the good twin and the evil twin, like one that's, you know, actually trying to help or gets accused, and then one twin that is actually under the you know, guise of the Sith, like she might be the Acolyte or whatever. And so I've heard that theory. I heard another theory. I had been thinking of this not related to May, but I have been thinking about this related to something else. So I'm going to start with my theory that I had relating to Kalnaka, and then I want to tie that into what I heard on. I was listening to TRB's live stream earlier, and John had a really good theory that I was like, oh, I hadn't thought about that, but it ties into what I was thinking. So, do you remember? And I don't know this Jedi's name yet from the show. They might have announced it, but in one of the trailers, they had the Coven of Witches standing, or like they were all lined up, and one of the Jedi's eyes like went all black and like fell in front of them and like put their arms out, and it looked like they were being like possessed or something by the witches, like this Coven of Witches. In one of the latest spots, we see Kalnaka striking out with his lightsaber and then like pushing out, like he's pushing out with the Force. And the individual that's standing, it's like really hard to make out, but it looks like it's that same Jedi that looked like they might have been being possessed by the Coven, like those witches. And I was wondering to myself when I saw this the other day, and I wanted to talk about this, is that like them saying like the Jedi are being compromised by these witches, and that's where the conflict like comes into play because they're frustrated the Jedi are trying to interfere in their affairs, and so what they're going to do is they're going to start, you know, messing with the Jedi in return. And that's what started me on this theory. And then what John said, which kind of I think ties this theory possibly together, is that May's character in general is suffering from the same thing. She's being possessed by these witches. She's doing all of these things. But then when she wakes up, it's like she's the other version of herself that maybe Soul is familiar with. and she hasn't, she doesn't recall doing all those things, but she's on the scene of the crime. It's almost like if you've seen the Christopher Nolan film Memento, where he only remembers things like every 15 minutes and then he loses his mind. It's kind of it almost kind of like playing on that. Yes. Or like Moon Knight for like Marvel. So I wanted to get your guys' pulse on where you think, like, obviously it's probably more likely it's the twin theory, but I saw that with Kelnaka, that made me think about that. And then hearing John say that was like, maybe it is all connected and the Sith are working with these witches. So what do you guys think about that theory? Or do you think it's going to be this like twin theory that's been floating out there really since the poster came out and you had the 2 versions of May on the poster? I'll throw it to whoever is ready to tackle this one first.
I can say I was listening to Star Wars Theory, and he was talking about, someone brought up this theory that like Star Wars Explained.
Yeah, I was laughing because I was like, Star Wars Theory was like that.
Sorry, it's not who I was listening to. Star Wars Explained. Was listening to, and he brought up that there is like a canon Jedi book and about a possession through like a kyber crystal or some kind of holocron. So it is like a canon thing, minorly, barely. Okay. And so I think there's precedent for it. This could be happening. And that excites me.
We've seen people get Jedi and people getting possessed before, like Night Sisters.
It's never happened on this scale in a live action show. So it feels like a new, fresh.
What about Night Sister Ahsoka with like stormtrooper like people and then like possessing them, making them like zombie? Is that, I get that might be a little different because they're kind of zombie troopers in a sense, but
you kind of are already dead. We don't really know about those stormtroopers if they're dead or not, but yeah, I guess it's not like a super brand new thing, but I'm ready for it. If that's the way they're going to go for it, I'm hyped for it because it seems cool. It seems fresh. It's not something we've seen in the movies, maybe. So
it would be completely different. Jay, what are your thoughts? Are you leaning more twins, or are you going more towards like possibly like this possession thing? I love the idea of Kelnaka being like this Jedi just trying to live his life, and these Jedi are messing with him because they're controlled by these people.
I mean, the show is called The Acolyte, and that word acolyte, I mean, does have religious connotation to it. So I wouldn't be surprised if these witches and if this spiritual aspect that has already been shown, if that has a bigger role to play,
right?
Because of just the title. So I'm still like kind of not formulating my own theories at this point. I'm just gonna go in kind of blind, and I just want to just be surprised. But I mean, like you mentioning the witches, and I obviously for us who've read the High Republic, the whole idea of like the path, which itself is a religious cult. I'm really excited for them to try and dive deeper into that, and I think even Leslie Headland, the series showrunner, has talked about how the show is also about just the monopoly of power and groups controlling power. And so I think that idea very much so is connected even to religion and to beliefs. So I wouldn't be surprised if like possession and, like the witches like have a bigger role.
I think they have
that's a quote from Mother Anastasia. She says this is about power and who gets to use it. And so, I mean, that's exactly on the point.
And the Sith, we know, obviously aren't going to come to the forefront and announce themselves to the galaxy yet as a whole, like to the Jedi, because they're still going to be in the shadows when Phantom Menace, takes place, because that's when they will fully reveal themselves. But we know this is their soft launch, as my girlfriend would say. And so love a good soft launch, And so we know that the Sith are going to start pulling some strings. And could the witches be an avenue that they are going to do that? Because it's where they can kind of make some deals. They can cross up some people behind the scenes, but the Jedi aren't going to be fully aware. But Leslie Headland, in that interview that she had recently that was published, was talking about how Yoda knew of the rule of 2 when she talked about when they decided not to mention Bane in season 1, but how Darth Bane might be mentioned later. She said, like, Yoda knows about the rule of 2. Qui-Gon immediately recognizes Darth Maul as a Sith. So this can't be something where there's been no interaction with Sith, or at least any sort of whispers of Sith-esque things going on for thousands of years, because they were able to pick up on this so quickly, and they harped on that so fast in terms of Qui-Gon, Yoda understanding this. So there had to have been something that happened, and Leslie Headland said that she felt as if it was soon enough for them, that generation of Jedi, to know that it had to have happened within the last 100 years, which fits the timeline of, her show, which fits the timeline, of her narrative. And we know she's wanting to fit in these threads of legends and, these other things. And so I thought this was interesting. Have either of you played Knights of the Old Republic 2? Because I know you're both
done the
video
first
game
one.
people.
No,
done the first
unfortunately
one?
not. I'm not actually like a big
Okay.
fan of like KOTOR,
But
to be honest.
I think I saw where you're going with this.
So she said that, the mysterious masked villain is like partially inspired by Darth Treya, I believe, from Knights of the Old Republic 2. And I didn't know if you guys were familiar with that game. That's like my one area of Star Wars weakness, I would say, is video games. Like, I'm not super in the know of all of the different games out there. I'm just not a big gamer. But I thought that was interesting that she is so deep into Star Wars that she took a reference from a Sith from a video game, a sequel to the main video game most people have played, and was like, yeah, this is loosely inspired from this. Interesting. So this may change your thoughts on some of the fan theory stuff, but Amanla said in the behind the scenes that her character is on like a quest for revenge. Does that change your mind in terms of how you're viewing May or this twin theory that's going on out there? Or do you think that's just something she's saying to kind of float out what, the production and what the publicity has been for that character so far? Any ideas?
That doesn't surprise me. The fact that, like, if it is true that she's on a quest for revenge, we've seen a lot of stories in the past year or two, whether it be I have Inquisitor, Rise of the Red Blade, up on my bookshelf. We had Tales of the Empire, these stories of dropped out Jedi who have dropped out of the Order,
Right,
come
like the
back
Fallen.
and take their revenge.
Mm-hmm.
The fall, yeah. So like we have had a lot of these kind of stories about
Did you
that.
mention
So
Survivor? Did you mention Jedi Survivor?
Because
Because wasn't like the
Oh,
High
yes.
Republic Jedi
Yeah.
that
Yes.
steps up, and then we have obviously Manslayer just dropped in the chat talking
Toda
about
Kuna.
Reva.
Yeah.
There's lots of there's some examples out there.
Yeah.
At this point, that's a good point, Jay, for sure. Luke, what do you think?
As far as adding in this component of seeking revenge for May's character, I'm trying not to theorize too much on the show in general because I want to go in so blind and be so
Right.
blown away by it. But it seems like it fit. I mean, this character seems very torn, very tortured internally, mentally, spiritually. So it doesn't surprise me that this character would be seeking
Right.
revenge, which is something that the Jedi aren't supposed to do. And that seems to line up with what we've seen. This character is clearly in conflict with the Jedi Order. So, my cat in the background. Yeah, it seems to fit the bill. But we don't know how. We don't know in what capacity. So I love that is still left up to mystery.
Yeah, we don't want to know too much. I mean, it's a
Yeah,
action mystery thriller. Like, we want to have that mystery be there, that mystery element to exist as long as possible. And something that I love about what we've seen so far is I don't think we know too much. There may have been a few slip ups here or there, but ultimately I think we're going to be going in fresh. And the key is always, when we theorize and speculate, don't believe so much in your theories and speculations that you're unable to appreciate what happened. And this is going to light a fuse. This is going to light the spark that ignites the fire of like some Last Jedi haters. But I think that was a lot of the problem with the Last Jedi for people is we went so long without Star Wars, and it's been 40 years since people could theorize about Star Wars, that, when they had their theories of Force Awakens, what's going to happen next, and they saw what the story was, and it subverted their expectations by so much, they were probably part of it was unable to let go of what they had wanted and what they felt like was right, and didn't necessarily appreciate part of the story that was told. And that's not saying that people can't gripe over The Last Jedi. There's definitely, flaws there, but we're not getting into that. I hate that we even have to have that caveat when we talk about The Last Jedi. But it's an interesting point, because when you're watching the prequels, for the most part, you're not going to have a lot of theories on necessarily what's going to take place and how, because you know that what's going to happen ultimately is Anakin's going to fall, Palpatine's going to rise to power, the Jedi are going to be decimated. So
I was
it
thinking
is
about that the other day.
different
Just
situation.
how different the viewing experiences of the prequels versus the sequels, as you know what has to happen, where everyone's going to go for the prequels. And I think that's harder to do with the sequel trilogy, is you had no idea what's going to happen. So it's
And I feel
harder
like
to be a
that's
fan of that.
Yeah, it's like a perfect segue into talking about what we are planning on talking about for the next few minutes, which is The Empire Strikes Back, which was the film before The Last Jedi, before the prequels, that subverted every single fan's expectation. If you go back and read things that were written, like reviews that were written about this movie when people went in, and you go back and talk to people that went to go see this movie in theaters for the first time, it truly did flip on its head what people thought this series was, or this universe was and could be and was going to turn into. And it was met with a lot of mixed emotions and a mixed reviews at first, because it's a much darker tone than we see in the first one. It's absolutely, my uncle always says he was a terrified kid going to see Darth Vader in Empire Strikes Back. And it's been 44 years since that film came out, and now it's regarded by a lot of people as their favorite Star Wars film, or the best. And I'm not here to tell anyone what their favorite Star Wars film should or shouldn't be, but I will say that I feel like the majority have leaned towards Empire as their favorite. It's certainly my favorite Star Wars movie of all time, and probably my first or second favorite movie of all time as well. And so I want to talk a little bit, before we even talk about The Empire Strikes Back itself, into our favorite moments, or really important things that happen. I do want to get your guys' pulse on this. What do you think that must have been like? Because obviously none of us were there. To have your expectations subverted like that, to watch Luke go from on top down to rock bottom, and Han and Leia and their journey, the Empire flipping this whole thing, and the reveal that Vader is, Luke's father. All of those things happen in this movie. And I'm curious what you guys think that means for, Star Wars fans today, just in terms of expectations being subverted in such a dramatic way in this movie.
I can say that I think when you walk out of the theater of The Empire Strikes Back, it's just so different from A New Hope. You walk out of A New Hope and you're like, wow, the good guys won. This could be the end of the franchise. It could just be this one movie.
Right.
This was great, feel good movie. And so simply walking out of the theater after watching Empire Strikes Back, or just turning off the TV after it, you do have to sit with it for a while to process all the stuff that has happened, and have to take into account what is going to happen with these characters. They just kind of got beat. They didn't really win in that movie at the end. They fled Hoth. Bespin didn't go great. They lost Han. It's tough. So I think you come out of the movie holding both in your hand of, man, that was a very good movie, but it didn't make me jump for joy. And so you kind of have to wrestle with it. And I think that's a beautiful thing, that a movie, just watching colors on a screen move around, makes you just really have to think and process your emotions. I think that's beautiful.
I love the idea of having to leave a movie and processing the movie as well. I don't want to go to a film and leave my brain just went dead for 3 hours or whatever. I want to leave and be contemplating something, and that can actually be infuriating sometimes. But I think it's the most holistic, perfect like experience. So Jay, what do you think about how Empire really does, flip the script and change things throughout the entire galaxy of Star Wars and for moviegoers in a way they probably weren't expecting going in?
It's interesting because, like, looking at it now, I find that, like, Empire actually doesn't change things too much, which is kind of interesting because, when you really think about, like, that, I think that also just shows you how influential and foundational Empire Strikes Back is that when we say, oh, Darth Vader is the father of Luke, and it's about family, and it's this generational trauma or saga, we think that that's normal for Star Wars, but really at the time it wasn't too much. We mentioned the fact that, oh, this green Kermit the Frog like character is actually the greatest Jedi around. Again, we think, oh, that's normal. At the time, though, that wasn't, right? So it's really hard to, just put ourselves in that position of what it was like for new audiences to have seen The Empire Strikes Back for the first time, because, again, Star Wars was still just forming and was still just in its growing stages. And then we even see that even in Return of the Jedi, which we'll talk about next week. But Return of the Jedi is also kind of in response to The Empire Strikes Back, where they thought, okay, that was a little bit too dark. Let's go a little bit more to the fun child side with Ewoks and with Endor, and have a happy ending. So it's very odd to try and place ourselves in that sort of frame of mind. Frankly, I really can't imagine myself doing so, because, again, all of these important tenets of Star Wars were formed in Empire Strikes Back.
But I think, like, The Last Jedi is something that our generation has. We watched that movie in theaters. I think that is the Empire Strikes Back level of what it was in 1980 when that movie came out, because it defied a lot of like expectations, and it changed like what we thought of the Force. It changed what we could see. Like when Last Jedi gives us like Force projection, like across places, and it does like this whole, she see, with Kylo Ren and Rey seeing each other and making contact around the place to Luke projecting himself. So we see that, I think, in Empire. Think about the number of firsts that happen in Empire, from Luke at the very beginning of the movie using the Force to grab a lightsaber, and imagine what that would have been like when we hadn't seen that before. Of course, it changed our understanding of what the Force is and could be, because to that point we had seen Luke deflect bolts without looking in the training, with the training droid on the Falcon. And we saw him destroy the Death Star by just trusting his instincts and letting the Force guide him. But now we're getting into a whole new level that we're seeing with him Force grabbing that lightsaber from the beginning. He's trying to lift ships out of the water and lift rocks around him. And it became this, you expanded your mind of what you thought was possible, and just it heightened that to like a greater place. And also, like you mentioned before, Yoda. We talked last week, Jay, about taking risks and the importance of taking risks. I would love to see the faces of the people in the room when George Lucas came in and said, okay, so Luke's going to train with the greatest Jedi of all time. And it's going to be this little green goblin with giant ears who talks in riddles and is absolutely insane. Like he's going to grab his walking stick and hit R2-D2 with it, screaming, mine, mine, mine. That has to be one of the biggest risks taken in all of Star Wars, because if Yoda doesn't work, the movie flops. If Yoda doesn't work and people don't respect that this is a Jedi master, the Jedi master, then they can't take that movie seriously. Because if you can't take Luke's arc seriously in the movie, then you miss out pretty much on the entirety of the film. Because as great as Han and Leia are in that movie, most of this is about Luke and Vader building up for their impending showdown. And so that's a first. Obviously, we have the reveal of Vader being Luke's father. We have what I believe to be maybe Harrison Ford's greatest performance as an actor of all time, outside of maybe Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark. I love that movie. It's one of my favorite movies ever. That's top 5 too. So there's so many firsts that happen in this movie that I don't know how someone would have walked out of that theater not just in rapid discussion or deep thought about what they had witnessed. And I don't
Absolutely.
think, in terms of Star Wars, I don't think we've had that since, I think The Last Jedi was that. For better or worse, I think The Last Jedi was that, just because you had to go out and process, like, what did that mean for this, like, universe? What did that mean for this? When we got Force Awakens, I think you're like, this is Star Wars. I feel like Empire, and it's like interesting how it mirrors The Last Jedi, I think, in terms of you left that probably going, what did I just witness? Like, what was that? And I'm curious, of all these firsts, which one do you think is like the most important, or like the thing that was maybe like gripped people the most at that time?
I would go with the Yoda scene. The first of specifically him lifting the X-wing out of the water. Because we only saw a little glimpse of that at the beginning of the movie, which was new, of Luke pulling the saber to him. And so we suddenly learned that the Force can be used to like have telekinetic powers. That's new. And then we see that it can not only be used to pull a small object toward yourself, but the music swells. Yoda locks in. He stops being the little like funny little goblin. He gets serious. He pulls that ship out of the water, the giant heavy ship, perfectly places it down, and I think that is something that had to have stood the viewer base on their head of like,
Absolutely.
I didn't know that was going to be part of this universe.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
Yeah.
Jay?
I'm going to go with the cave sequence. Because I think that if there was a scene that really showed just how dark and how mysterious and how foreboding the series could get, it's that scene. It's the fact that Luke goes into the cave, defeats Darth Vader, but then he sees his head. Luke sees his own face, and just the shock of that and the sheer like surprising imagery behind that, I think that was a really important scene that does solidify again the stakes and the tone that Star Wars could get. And and it's funny because it draws upon classical antiquity. It draws upon Greek mythology, the idea of going into a cave and there being a monster or seeing one's reflection in the water. That is such a common trope in classic antiquity. But here it is again being drawn in modern movie making, and I think that again there are a lot of important moments and scenes and firsts that we're talking about. Again, Darth Vader revealing himself to be Luke's father, Han Solo, Yoda that Luke just mentioned. But I think that one like still stands out to me because for even as a kid like who watched that scene, it was kind of scary, and I'm sure it was pretty scary for a lot of kids who watched it for the first time too.
Absolutely. That's a really great point, just about the parallels that exist throughout like storytelling in general and how that's manifested in Star Wars in this instance. I will say, I think there is an unheralded like hero in this movie, someone that's performance is never talked about, but helps make this film and makes all three films. And like, that's David Prowse in the suit.
Oh yeah.
Because just the way that he commands himself in the suit it's really hard to describe in words, but when you think about like James Earl Jones' voice is at its peak in this movie, like that, my favorite line in that movie is just when he is, "The Force is with you, young Skywalker," like, "But you are not a Jedi yet." Like, that's just so good. But the way that he's standing there and like commandeering himself, like he feels so in control. He feels so powerful. And the way that Prowse's like power in the suit, like there is just something about how he can like conducts himself and like has that commanding presence, and you tie that in with James Earl Jones' like iconic voice,
And it
and
helps
no
that
one,
David Prowse was a bodybuilder.
yeah, it just no one talks about like his role in bringing Darth Vader to life. And is obviously you lean towards James Earl Jones. Like he's the voice of Darth Vader. If you don't get the voice for Vader right, you know, it's going to be hard for a masked character to really work. But what we need to talk about more is, you know, if you're a masked character, you don't see the facial expressions. We're not seeing the person under there act like with their face. So what you do beneath that is equally as important. And it's obviously like if you put like a shrimpy guy like me in the Darth Vader suit and you have James Earl Jones voice like voice overing my actions, people are gonna laugh. Like I'm not gonna be able to conduct myself like this overpowering villain like Prowse is able to do. And I think, you know, we have to give, you know, credit where credit's due. And I don't think we talk about like that performance nearly as much like as we should throughout
True.
these three films. I don't know about you guys, but like I just felt like that was something that needs to be said when we talk about one of the great movies in history. Uh, Curious what you guys think about Harrison Ford in this movie, because I love Harrison Ford. Probably my favorite movie star of all time in terms of like anytime I see a Harrison Ford like movie, I'm going to watch it. Like I have a list of like the movies I still have yet to see from Harrison Ford. Like something about I just love Han Solo as my favorite character as a kid. I aspired to be Han Solo my entire life. And then like I love Indiana Jones and like I just want to be Indiana Jones and all of these other characters that he's brought to life. And I said this before, I think this might be his best performance of all time right here. I don't think many people would argue that this is the best Han Solo performance of all time in terms of his, you know, 4 appearances as Han outside of the Rise of Skywalker, like brief cameo. What do you think about Harrison Ford's performance makes it so iconic in this? Like, what about his ability to perform in this movie do you think stands out the most? Because not just anyone could play that role. It takes a
I think it's
special
the
kind of scoundrel.
Yeah, I think it's the one-liners. You know, everyone of course points
Absolutely.
out the "I love you, I know" scene, which is of course great. But throughout the
good.
entire film, he's quipping lines,
Mhm.
and he's just like so rapid in his responses. Like when Han and Leia are walking through the hallway in the beginning in Hoth base, and he's trying to get Leia to plant a kiss on him. And it's like, come on, just one, like that sort of stuff, right? Or it's when Leia accidentally falls into his lap, and then Han Solo's like, don't get excited, It's
Don't
all
get
those
all
little,
mushy on me. So long, princess. Like
yeah,
that stuff like that.
it's all
So
those
good.
little things that, or even that I'm just remembering when they're navigating the asteroid field, and then you have the toolbox that's up above the platform where Han is working, and then they hit the asteroid, and then the toolbox falls on him,
Mhm.
and then Han Solo just belts out this yelp of pain. Hilarious. He's like, bring me the hydro spanner and all that stuff. It's hilarious, and it's just this level of hijinks that contrasts with Luke's story and his journey, that I think that's what makes this character more memorable in this movie than in A New Hope.
That's a good point. And just talking about Han Solo, I think part of what is great about this movie is we know that Han is deeply insecure about thinking he's even worthy of being with Leia because of who he is. Like we know this based off of there's books, and it's obvious, like because we see the really soft side of him throughout times in this movie. Like at the end before he goes, like when he tells Chewie to stop, you need to take care of her. Like we don't see these softer moments of him very often. And yes, he's a scoundrel. Like he is kind of going to be the cocky, like arrogant guy. But we know to some degree, after having this character fleshed out more, that is a bit of a front. Like that is a bit of a front he puts on for show. And Leia, the best part about Leia is she loves the scoundrel side of him, but she also can see past it. Like she sees like the good guy, she sees the Han Solo that we also love him for. And I love watching him balance the I'm gonna be my cocky, arrogant self, but I'm also kind of like deeply insecure about the fact that I'm in love with this princess, and I do not feel like we are even close to on the same level. And he's right, they're not. Like he's a lucky guy. So Luke, what do you think about this Harrison Ford performance that he puts on here?
I mean, this is Han Solo's movie. This is where he has his arc, really. I mean, I just love. Again, I'm with you. I love Harrison Ford so much. The new Indiana Jones movie came out last summer, and I hadn't seen any Indiana Jones movies, so I binged all 4 so I could go watch the 5th one in movies. So I love the way he commands himself. He seems like he's so at home on screen. The way he delivers some hard lines written by our very own George Lucas. Some of those lines are not natural or easy to deliver, and he's just sitting there like just chopping it up with Anthony Daniels and people on screen. I just love that a lot of the characters are like kind of spastic. Like Luke is a spaz, and Leia, she's pretty hard nosed, and like she doesn't take it easy often. And here's Han, who's just like, I don't care, and that's just so against all the other like dynamics working. So I love that it feels okay. I guess it feels like Harrison Ford didn't have to like act. He kind of just showed up and was Harrison Ford on set. I think that's what I love about him, and that it works so well. It feels like he's just in the pocket.
He is incredible in this movie. Let's talk about Hoth for a minute, because we talked about the characters and performances, but let's talk about Hoth. I don't want to get ahead of myself, because I think that there are some great locations in, the originals. Obviously, Tatooine is a planet that we've come back to time and time again. And the Twin Suns is always going to be the most iconic like moment, in maybe one of the most iconic moments in all of the original trilogy. But I feel like if you ask people, like, what's your favorite place that we went to in the original trilogy, I think a lot of people would go Hoth, because the Battle of Hoth was is seeing like the ground assault of the Empire with the AT-ATs, and you have the tiny AT-STs going around, and you had the snow speeders, the snow planet, it's freezing cold, and this new side of the galaxy. Like the first movie, we were desert planet. Now we're going like completely the other side with an ice cold snow planet. And like when we talk about playing Battlefront and some of these classic games, like I hear all the time people like, I love playing the Battle of Hoth, like it's just one of my favorite battles to go play. And I'm curious what you guys think. I want to talk about Hoth for a minute. Like, what do you is that your favorite location in the originals? Like, where does it rank for you in terms of some of the planets or new locations that we go to? For me, it's my favorite because it reels us right into the movie, and you have an instant connection with this planet. I thought that was going to be hard to do after the connection you make with Tatooine. But the way Tatooine is you couldn't wait to get off Tatooine to go other places. And that's the way the movie's written. But with Hoth, they make you go like, we want to stay here. Like this is the rebel base. This is the rebellion. Oh no, we have to leave Hoth. No, I want to go back to Hoth. What do you guys think? Hoth, tell me about it.
I'll say that Hoth, sometimes we're supposed to see it as like rebel base. We want to be there so bad. It's supposed to be safe. But I am such a wimp. I hate the cold. So I'm like, just watching Hoth. I need an extra blanket on my couch watching Hoth.
Would you have defected from the rebel base, from the rebellion, if they told you you're now going to Hoth? Like, are you done? Are you joining the Empire? Like at that point, because the rebels are making you go to Hoth. So you're like, screw you guys. I'm gonna blow you guys to smithereens.
I am rebellion forever. Absolutely not. I'm joining, shoulder to shoulder with Thane Kyrell in the Rebel base on
Lost
on
Stars
Hoth.
reference for those of you who are
I
wondering what just
am
got dropped.
almost finished with this book. I'm finishing it this weekend. It's captured me. But I think Hoth is just it's obviously iconic. The snow speeders, which crazy that they showed up in like the Kenobi series. They're just so. I thought they only existed on Hoth. You know, I think it's wildly genius to have this like tow cable on the back that you can like wrap the legs of these AT-ATs, which seem so OP that you can't shoot them down, but you can trip them. I love this like the ingenuity that you have to have as like guerrilla warfare, as like a less advanced army. Like you have to find creative ways to beat your enemy, and I think that's something that I love about
It's kind of
that.
like Dune, where the
Yeah,
technology became so advanced that you had to resort to like basically sword on sword, like medieval warfare, in some respects, because technology became too advanced, like the armor's too strong, like for blasters. Jay, what are your thoughts on Hoth?
absolutely.
Like, amazing planet.
I think it's interesting. Like you mentioned video games and Battlefront, but the Battle of Hoth is so important for video games. And it started with Shadows of the Empire. I want to give that game a shout out because that was the first game where you actually truly controlled like the snow speeders, and in which the player, it felt good to control snow speeders. You had snow speeders in games before, and like the SNES version and the arcade version, but it wasn't really like that fun, and it didn't have like the many layers that Shadows of the Empire had, where you attack the probe droids first, then you attack the AT-STs, then you go up and attack the AT-ATs. But really, like I think the fact that what makes it so iconic and why even in video games it is important is because it is the classic ground assault war battle that we think of, and that draws inspiration from like old World War One and World War Two movies. That's what makes it iconic, is that you have it feels like a Dr. Zhivago, or it feels like a Lawrence of Arabia, where you have
That's a good
these.
reference.
Thank you. You have both sides on like it's from a filmmaking standpoint, from an audience perspective, you can easily understand the battle because one side is over here, the other side is over here, and you have one or two important characters that are trying to make a difference and that have important moments that make a difference. For example, on one end you have Luke Skywalker, who wants to go and shoot the AT-ATs. Turns out you can't, take them down with blasters. Okay, plan B. Then you have on the other side with the AT-ATs, I forgot the captain's name. The main captain with the
Veers.
big helmet. Veers, thank
Captain
you. Yes.
Veers.
Yes.
Veers
General
watch.
Veers. General Veers.
Right, but there's
Shouts
your
to Veers watch.
Yeah.
there's your other captain though. There's your other important character on the other side who you can progress and see making progress slowly and saying like, all right, I'm in range. Gotta target the shield blaster right now. All of it is so clearly laid out, and again, that is classic filmmaking, where you just follow a few characters important in the battle who are commanding actions and reacting to what's going on. And that's what, again, makes it like that classic, old school, like iconic battle.
Empire Strikes Back is so freaking good. Luke, did you have a comment on that?
It's kind of random, but on Hoth, I just saw this past week on Twitter, there's this random like 2-second shot where the camera like pushes in to just people in the trench aiming down sights.
Yeah.
And someone commented like, this is like wild that this is in the movie, because this is the exact same thing you'd see like in The Office. Like it's just like a camera push in on like unnamed person. And I just thought it was funny because it's like, that's kind of true. Like I don't know why that's in there, but I love it. I love it.
Just a random thing.
Yeah.
Before I get your guys' final takes on The Empire Strikes Back, a brief compilation of some of my favorite lines from the movie that I use all the time in life. The first one has to be, I feel like I can just take on the whole empire myself. like Rip Dak, who died shortly after uttering
Dak Walter,
those
no!
words. Like, just note to self, that's what I always say to myself before I charge the stormtroopers in Battlefront. Usually I make sure I have at least one life left before I do that. Next one is apology accepted, Captain Nita. That's what my dad would say to me when I was a child, asking for forgiveness and saying I'm sorry, and he would still punish me anyway. Like if I was grounded and I'd be like, Dad, I'm so sorry. I will never do it again. I promise. And he's like, apology accepted, Captain Nita. And then I'd be like, and he goes, yeah, you're still grounded for 2 weeks. See ya. And so that was happening. I do love you must unlearn what you have learned. That is one of my favorites in the classroom to deliver to students when they are absolutely unhinged and thinking they know everything. That doesn't usually go over like super well a lot of times with them. And then, of course, the one we've all said before, like, is impressive. Most impressive. So many good ones. And then I thought they smelled bad from the outside. So good. There's so many great quotes that came out of that movie. And I will say that, you know, the Vader Anakin, the Vader Luke stuff, and that is stuff in Legends for Star Wars, because that will for me, that nothing might ever top some of that just horror aspect that we get. And I'm wondering if we might get some horror aspect type things in the Acolyte as well. Where does Empire rank for you in terms of your Star Wars movies? Jay, you told me last week that A New Hope is your favorite. Is this number 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11? We'll include Rogue One and Solo in terms of Star Wars.
Ooh, I think it kind of goes back and forth between 2 and 3. I think
With 3.
It goes back and forth
what's the
between
other one?
Empire and Revenge of the Sith for 2 and 3.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, sometimes I put like Empire at 2, sometimes I put Revenge as 2, and then Empire as 3. So it kind of goes in, like, it's still high up there though, right?
Right.
You know,
I mean,
right.
Bro, you could sit here and tell me that your favorite Star Wars movie is whatever, and if it's your favorite, it's your favorite. Now,
that's true.
Whenever I talk movies with people, I always say, like Star Wars, I tell people The Phantom Menace is like my third favorite or like my second favorite Star Wars movie. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that it's like the second or third best like Star Wars movie in terms of like the way it's made and the direction of the movie and everything. Like, because I think you can acknowledge that something is better than something else, but say I like that more though anyway. And so like I just want to say, like, your favorite best list. Like for me, this is like, I think it's the best and it's my favorite, but like that's one thing or another. But like, oh, Anthony Daniels is the best. Oh,
but
so good. What is the line when like the hyper, something's wrong with the hyperdrive and C-3PO says it and Han just says, well, of course I'm gonna have to replace it, and then he just looks at Chewbacca's like, I think we're gonna have to replace the whatever.
Yeah,
like
alluvial dams.
Yeah,
like you really didn't know what was actually needed to be fixed.
Couldn't let 3PO know. So it's number 2 or 3 depending on the day, like what the vibe is, like Revenge of the Sith or Empire. Okay, I love that. I love that. Luke?
Empire, as far as my list of favorites, I think it would be 2 or 3.
2 or 3. Okay.
Yeah, it's definitely top 3. So my first and second. I don't have this list written down anywhere. It's kind of just always floating in my head, and it's super loose. But my top 3 would be like some order of like Last Jedi, Return of the Jedi, and Empire. I think Return of the Jedi is a solid, my favorite. You know, weird enough, but I think I love how wild of a ride that movie is.
I think like a lot of people on our staff actually do put Return as number 1 though.
Okay,
so
I think that's Val's favorite. I think that's Val's favorite.
Val,
Rosie,
I think maybe
be Josh as well. I don't want to. I don't want to put.
I know. I can't speak for Nate.
I know there's a few.
Yeah,
I know there's a few though.
I know Nate also really loves it too. So we'd have to ask them. And
it's probably the best feel good Star Wars movie.
I was worried I get singled out there. So yeah, Empire's definitely top 3.
It's got to be the best feel good Star Wars movie.
Yeah,
outside of maybe like A New Hope. That would be a conversation. Like, but Obi-Wan dies, so like, you know, it's interesting. I feel good Star Wars movie. It's tough, one or the other. I love Star Wars. Empire's number one for me. And it's just in terms of the historical context of it too. Like I
Yeah.
cannot watch that movie and not. But oddly enough, I watched this movie the least of like my top 4 or 5 favorites. Like I don't go back to this one as much, just because I like to preserve it almost. Versus like Phantom, I'll just put that on the background, you know, for fun. Jay, thanks for hopping on this evening.
Oh, yeah.
Let's tell everyone about Good Games Dude real quick.
Yes, Good Games Dude is my own YouTube channel that I have. Feel free to check it out. This week, I am covering a new game release called Senua's Saga Hellblade 2. It is a really interesting game because it is very much so like a cinematic game. It's not like a video game. It feels more like a movie. And in most cases, you're actually watching it than you are playing it. But that doesn't mean that it's bad. In fact, I actually think it's pretty good. So check out my review on that game. Should be coming up this weekend. And feel free to check that out. And as far as Star Wars Newsnet goes, I have a new review of some Star Wars comics, including the latest Mace Windu. Spoiler alert, it's kind of disappointing. But feel free to check it out.
Why you gotta lower my hype like that? I guess it's better for me to know going in. Please like and subscribe to the channel. Check out Star Wars Newsnet. We're, you know, at Star Wars Newsnet wherever you're on social media. So make sure you give us a follow, like and subscribe for this episode, and subscribe to the channel. Luke, this is your first time with the Star Wars Newsnet crew. You're going to be joining me for the timeline show. We have a few episodes with me and Brian still that haven't come out yet. Just give us some patience on that, everyone. We're just trying to get things shuffled around with the changing landscape of that. I promise you, I have like 3 timeline shows recorded. I just got to get some editing and stuff done before we can drop those. We have 3 episodes of movie discussions with Miguel that are going to come out as well. And Luke's going to be hopping on and doing some timeline show stuff with us as well. Luke, what is one thing that everyone needs to know about your Star Wars fandom before we let you go? That's a loaded question.
Yeah, I know. I think I'll just say that if you ever want to talk about any comic book show or movie, you can do it with me. I can find the good in anything. We'll find the good. We'll find overlap. I love everything about this franchise. So I'm an open book myself. Yeah.
I love that. So guys, in terms of content, I mentioned the Miguel, episodes that we're going to have with me and him chopping it up about, the 3 upcoming movies that Disney is working on with Lucasfilm. We talked about, I have more timeline show episodes coming out, and this is the most important thing. I have written 7 pages of a Temptation of the Force review.
Oh, let's go.
I have like 2 more pages to write, and then I got to cut this whole thing down and trim it down a little bit.
No, double the page count.
Because I'm not doing that. Because I'm trying to give like a little bit into where every single character is at, and like without spoiling anything, talk about what like Tesseract does with this book. And I am telling everyone, like, the embargo on this is not up for another 5-6 days. Cataclysm is my favorite Star Wars book of all time. This is in terms of High Republic, this is 2 or 3. This one's 2 or 3 for me. Maybe it's like top 4 for sure, because Rising Storm and Convergence are really good as well for me. This one's right in that mix. It's not as good as Cataclysm for me. That's just never going like ever change. I don't know. We'll see. But this book is incredible. If you love romance in Star Wars, this is the book for you. If you love action-packed Star Wars, this is the one for you. If you love Jedi and lines getting blurred between what is like seeking justice and seeking revenge, this is the book for you. If you love the lore and like the Force itself and what we know about it expanding, this book is for you. This book is so freaking good. I cannot wait for everyone to read it. Pre-order your copies. Check out the review that's going to be coming out next week. Hopefully May 28th. I am leaving on vacation very soon, so I might not have time to completely finish it until I get back. But That'll be fine. We'll get it out there very soon. I would love to talk to Discord about this book. I have so many questions. So make sure you're keeping your eyes out for that next week. Thank you, everyone, for joining in and hopping in the chat and hanging out this evening. If you are listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, thank you for bearing with us as we, rambled on for this hour and 20 minutes. You can, again, follow us on, any social media platform at Star Wars News Net. We cover everything from comics, books, movies, TV shows, video games, toys, and even, every random little thing like Oreos that are coming out soon for Jedi and Sith that Jay and I got to talk about last week. For Light and Life, everyone, have a great rest of your week.